students, I'm back with your next class. In today's class, we are going to discuss populations, the other part of the chapter. Okay, so let us start with the definition. See, first of all, they will be also isolated to some degree from other similar groups. Alright, now, although interbreeding means sexual reproduction, a group of individuals resulting from asexual reproduction is also considered a population. So it is not that only because in the definition of population we are using the term interbreeding, that means sexually reproducing organism would be regarded as a population. No, nothing like that. Even asexually reproducing organisms can be taken together as a population. For example, all cormorants of the wetland, rats in abundant dwellings, teakwood trees in forest tract, etc. Alright. Now, a few important terminologies are discussed here, like DEEM means local population, means at a given time in a given place how many particular organisms are present from a given species. That would be regarded as DEEM. Alright. Next, metapopulation. Whole set of local populations connected by dispersing individuals is known as metapopulation. Next, keystone species, very important. Keystone species means it is a species which, though having small population, has a major influence on the composition of the community. Like for example, in your community there may be so many different varieties of grass, right? But then only a single banyan tree. That single banyan tree, it might be only one. In number it is very less, but then it plays a very important role in comparison to those grass maybe. Because it being such a huge plant, it would be housing so many birds, and those birds again would be housing so many parasites in their bodies, isn't it? Likewise, when the leaves of that banyan tree would be falling off and it would be falling onto the soil, that would again give rise to organic matter. That organic matter would be decomposed by various microbes, that would again give rise to the microbes instead, and decomposition would increase the soil fertility as well, isn't it? That would again be giving rise to humification or humus formation, providing nutrients to the plants. So one single species may be less in number but playing so many variety of roles, isn't it? That's why, or that's when we can call such species to be a keystone species. Is that clear? Fine. Next, let us discuss population attributes. Now let us discuss a very important part, that is population attributes. See, just like an individual has certain specific characteristics by which we can define it, likewise for a population as well, there are a few features which are present strictly to the population only and are not found in the individual. Okay, so these are certain features which will be allowing us to study the population. Alright, so see, population attributes are certain features present in the population but it is lacking or it lacks in the individual. Okay. Now, they are as follows. First, birth and death rate. See, these are certain rates which represents changes in the number with respect to members of population. Okay, so how many members are increasing or decreasing in the population, that if we want to study, we have to go for birth or death rate. Why? It's a strict feature of the population only. Like all of you know, an individual organism can have either birth or death, isn't it? But population only can possess birth rate and death rate. Alright, that's why these are population attributes. Okay, now these refers to per capita birth or death respectively. Okay, now let's see, it will become much more clear from this example. If in a pond 20 lotus plants were present last year and 8 new have been added to it, okay, so the current population becomes 28. So how do you find the birth rate then? Birth rate is equal to del n by n del t. That means how many has been added, that is 8, divided by how much was the initial population, that is 20. So the birth rate becomes 0.4. In the similar manner, you can find out the death rate as well. Alright. Now, next, sex ratio. See, again, a single individual can be either male or female. But then population possesses both males and females. So population possesses sex ratio, right? That's how again sex ratio is going to act as a population attribute. Alright, see. Population has both males and females, that is the sex ratio. And for example, if a population has 1000 individuals and 600 are females and 400 males, then the sex ratio for female to male would be 60:40. Do you remember that is the sex ratio of female to male, that is 60:40. Alright. Now, next, this being the most important. Among all the different types of population attributes that we are going to discuss, this is the most important. It has been asked many a times in the exam. Okay, so all of you be careful here then. Population age. See, a single individual can have only a single age, isn't it? But a population possesses 3 different types of age groups at any given time. Okay, see. A population at any given time can possess 3 age groups. First is pre-reproductive, that means the children who have not reached the reproductive stage yet. Reproductive, that means the adults who can participate in reproduction process. And post-reproductive means the members who have become aged, who have surpassed their reproductive age. Alright, now here in our discussion, pre-reproductive I am going to denote with blue color, reproductive with black color, and post-reproductive with red color. Where? Because see, in any given population, because the pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive age groups will be in variable number, isn't it? In some population, pre-reproductive may be more. In some, the post-reproductive population may be more, or post-reproductive age group may be more. So the age groups will keep on varying from one population to another, isn't it? And accordingly, we can form age pyramids. And that age pyramid helps us to understand the growth rate of the population. That means whether this population is expanding, that means it is going to increase over time, or whether it is declining, that means it is going to reduce over time, or is it stable. Alright, that's why age pyramids are so very important. Do remember, in the age pyramids, I am going to mark pre-reproductive with blue, post-reproductive with red, and reproductive with black. Alright, see. So age pyramids can be of 3 types. First, triangular age pyramid. Here, the pre-reproductive population is going to be the maximum. That means children are going to be maximum. Then a little lesser would be the reproductive population or reproductive age group. And then the least will be the old or the post-reproductive age group. Okay, so likewise you can obviously understand from this that eventually all the children, they would become reproductive, and as they become reproductive or they convert into reproductive age group, at that time the reproductive population will be too high, and that's why such a population would be expanding or increasing over the time, isn't it? Fine. Next is bell-shaped age pyramid. Bell-shaped age pyramid means the pre-reproductive and reproductive population will be almost similar or same, but then post-reproductive will be less. That's why the pyramid will take up a bell-shaped appearance. Alright? Such a population would neither increase nor decrease over the time, and it shows stability. It's a stable population. Okay? Finally, the last one is urn-shaped. Here, the pre-reproductive population or the age group is less. Also, the post-reproductive is less. What is more is the reproductive population. See, of course, you can understand that when this reproductive population will grow old, there are not many children to replace them, isn't it? So, in that case, eventually, such a population will show decline. So, it will reduce or it will decline over time. Alright, so population age and especially the age pyramids are very, very important for your exam. I hope all of you are clear about it. Next, let us discuss population density. Next would be population density or population size, which we denote as capital N. Alright. See, the population size of a particular given species in a given space can be known by various ways. We can estimate it by various means, and they are as follows. First is total number. Total number is of course the most appropriate way how you can understand the size of a population. Here we will be directly counting the members of the population. Directly counting means we will be getting the exact figure that how many organisms are making up the population of a species. Okay. See, counting all the individuals of the space, that direct counting is going to be regarded as the total number. It can be as low as less than 10 Siberian cranes at Bharatpur wetland, or it may go up to millions like Chlamydomonas in a pond. Okay, but total count is the most appropriate measure. Do remember that. Next, biomass or person covers. Now, biomass or person covers is going to be applicable to the keystone species that I have referred to you in the beginning of the class. See, sometimes in a particular locality or in a particular given space, there are certain keystone species present, like the banyan tree. Now, banyan tree per locality will be very less in number. At that time, directly counting its number would kind of underestimate its huge role that it is playing in the ecosystem. Okay, so at that time, for huge plants or keystone species, we generally consider the biomass or the percent cover that the plant or the species would produce, rather than directly counting its number, because number wise it will anyways remain much lower. Okay. Next is relative density. Okay. See, sometimes a population may be so huge that total count or directly counting the number of organisms making up the population is kind of impossible. Okay. At that time, we will have to go for relative density. See here, if population is too huge and direct counting is impossible, then we go for relative density. Okay. For example, bacteria in a petri dish or fish in the lake, etc. Now, relative density of a species you can directly measure by this formula, that is total number of individuals of a species divided by total number of individuals of all species into 100. Okay, so by this you will get an approximate idea about what kind of or how many individuals may be making up the population. Alright. Last is indirect count. Now, sometimes directly counting the organisms may not be possible because that organism may be harmful. Okay, like for example in tiger census. Okay, tiger census in India for various tiger reserves or national park, it is done not by directly going to the tiger and counting it. Of course, that's not possible, right? At that time, we use some kind of indirect measures to kind of have an approximate idea that how many tigers may be present in the national park or the tiger reserve. Like mostly pug marks or fecal pellets. That's what is mostly taken into consideration, which will give you an idea regarding number of tigers. Alright, so see here, the population size is measured by indirect count. For example, tiger census in tiger reserves is mostly based on pug marks and fecal pellets. Alright, so population size can be known by various ways. The most important or the most appropriate one is going to be total number, where you directly count the number of organisms present or making up the population. Next is biomass or percent cover, that would be applicable to the keystone species where the organism may be lower in number but they are playing a huge role in the ecosystem. At that time, simply counting the number would kind of underestimate their huge role that they are playing, okay, because their number would anyways remain lower than any other kind of population. That's when we go for biomass or percent cover. Finally, relative density. If the population is too huge and counting it is impossible, we go for relative density. And the last is indirect count. In case the population you want to measure has organisms which are, beyond reach or which are harmful, at that time we usually go for indirect count. Indirectly, we will take certain factors by the help of which approximate idea regarding the size of the population is measured. Alright. So that much for today's class. In the next class, we'll start with population growth. Thank you.